Mike. Hello, everybody. This is video 666, the mark of the beast. I guess I'm the beast, not the beast. I'm not a beast, I don't think so. But anyway, and this is going to be about friendships. I made mention in the previous video, which I just made, about some exercises I'm doing through OBOD. And one of the meditations was about the friend, which I'm gonna say it's like Avakarva or Ada, I don't know. It sounds like a Harry Potter spell. I think Avakarva, but the idea of a soulmate, not necessarily a romantic relationship. Probably you could consider being not necessarily a spiritual advisor, but the idea of finding someone, usually it's a friend, who is somewhat your counterpart. It sounds a hell of a lot like someone you're in a romantic relationship with, but it's not. It's nothing to do with sex or attraction or romance. It's the idea of what I would consider to be, it's kind of like your soulmate. But usually, like I said, not a romantic spouse, not your husband, not your wife, but having a friend that you can confide in and share your thoughts with, and they you. Usually, it's a two-way street. They confide in you, you confide in them. Is someone you can be close with. Listen. Usually, it's listening, a lot of listening, and a little bit of feedback. Kind of like a therapist almost, but as a friend, for free, etc., etc. And I guess in this world we romanticize being an individual that is a good friend that listens and maybe does some pondering and feedback and all those good things. Probably like maybe what replaces a parent in a child-parent relationship when the child grows up. And that child is now an adult, and they're still kind of providing some of those stereotypical parenting skills to other people, and they, them. Could be. I don't know. Not a psychologist, I'm just a person. And I guess what I want to talk about is the challenge of being a trans person, trans woman, myself. But the situation of being a trans person and not really having access to that. Or, as my good friend Hamster once said about relationships, is the pool gets smaller and smaller, and maybe that's what it is. As trans folk, the potential pool of candidates narrows by quite a bit. In my mind, anyway. I could be totally wrong, but I know for myself. I'm not going to say I don't. There was a period of time in my in leading up to my transition, pre-transition, and for the first 2 years. I really didn't know how to deal with people. I didn't know how to, I was between worlds. I was leaving the male camp where I knew the norms and the rules and what it was to, make friends and be friendly as a guy, walking corpse that I was. And then I was moving over into the female camp. I didn't know how do you make friends? How do you talk to women? How do you, again, from a guy to a girl, you think you know what you say and you think you know what to talk about, but then when you break beyond that and you're actually in the woman camp, and vice versa, if you're a female to male, you step into the other camp and you're welcomed by your tribe, and now there's a new set of norms and rules, and how do you, as a woman, how do you talk to the guys over here? And as a woman, how do you communicate with the women over here? So for a good 2 years, it was hard to do. And what I found now is it's very hard to make friends. very hard to make friends outside of the trans community. And, it's cool to have trans friends because they immediately can identify with whatever you're about to say. If I'm talking to a trans woman, for example, and I talk about uh, being lonely or isolated, or the desire I had when I was a kid, and the shame and the guilt that I felt over the feelings that I had, they're going to immediately know what that is because they felt it. But when you build your friendships only on that kind of relationship, after a while it wears kind of thin. You know, I'm trans, you're trans, I'm fully realized, you're fully realized, and that length that we're transgendered, it isn't enough. It kind of dwindles out. Well, I've helped you, you've helped me, and it kind of like we diverge. And so I guess what this video is, I'm just speculating. Will I ever meet my avocadabra, my avocadabra? Will I ever meet my soul counselor? We'll say, not my soulmate. Will I ever meet my soul counselor? I don't know. I think potentially I have a lot of soul counseling I'm doing right now. Listening to my friends, listening to people. Let me rephrase that. And offering my help if they needed it. As a friend, if you need help moving furniture because you're moving, I'll be there to help you out. If you're having trouble with your spouse or someone at work, I'm the first to listen to you. And think about you. I have a couple of friends right now who are going through some serious shit and unpleasantness, especially with this virus, and divorce issues, and not happy. And I do a lot of thinking and meditating and growth work, trying to send them positive energy and listening, being a good friend. Ooh, my voice is starting to crack. And to try and be a good friend, But I don't have that. It's not reciprocated. So I'm not trying to say, poor me, I don't have any friends. But I'm marking it as, one day in the life of an older, one trans at middle age. My YouTube channel here, I'm kind of marking I'm putting a post-it on the wall saying, hey, I'm alone and may be alone the rest of my life. And you might be alone the rest of your life too. I don't know. I have a number of friends, trans friends, that are in relationships right now, married, but they were married before they were transitioned rather, and that the marriage survived it. And so, I guess maybe what I'm driving towards, and very poorly, I'll admit, the idea of meeting new friends post-transition is very, very hard. It's hard for me. It might be hard for you. It may not be hard for you. Maybe you're an extreme extrovert and you make friends easy. I don't know. But, again, back to the idea of your soul counselor. It's hard. It's hard. Outside of the trans community, let me preface that. Like I said, I have trans friends that yes, we've got that kind of soul counseling, but again, after a while, it dissipates. Especially if they're in a relationship, because then they don't need you anymore. They're going to do their soul counseling with their spouse or their relationship or whatnot. So, I don't know. Kind of sucks. And if anything, perhaps look at this and learn from it in your own life and do something. Maybe it's different from you, or perhaps look at it and say, aha, I too feel this way, and then we're compatriots. You know, um, you're not alone. I'm not alone. Although our commonality is that we're alone. Blows your mind if you think about it. So that's really all I wanted to do. Like I said, uh, and part of the meditation was to perhaps look for some soul work, soul searching, but also to recognize who we gain that relationship from, and perhaps to build up, strengthen our relationship with them, but also who we perhaps counsel on that level too. And I guess part of the video, again, like I said, is just to comment on the milestone that we are alone. I mean, some of us are alone. Majority of us, I think, are alone. Or is that total and complete bullshit, and it's just the idea of people in general? You know, how many older people do you know uh, who their spouse dies and they don't hook up with someone else? You know, they live the rest of their life isolated and alone. You know, maybe they find other people who with whom they can visit. But again, I don't know. I just think about some of my parents' friends. Hang on just a minute here. Getting a lot of error messages. Uh-oh. The deep state is against what I'm about to say. They're causing my computer to short out. But you know, I can think back to growing up and my parents' friends. Again, their spouse got divorced, or their spouse died and they were a widower, and they live the rest of their lives alone. So maybe it's nothing new, you know. That said, you know, if we want to talk for a moment about how to fix it, it's very masculine quality. Let's fix it. Would be to get out of this bubble and do things. Do our hobbies, do our interests. You know, that's one way of meeting common people. I know for myself, there's a Louisville Pagans group. There's a group that meets at a church that I started to go to a long time ago. It was the Universal Unitarian pagan group. And so, you know, the more that we do the things that interests us, we're likely to meet somebody else, and maybe that's one way of finding someone else. And in this regard, I'm moving away from the spiritual counselor to the spiritual soulmate, I guess. But you know, again, then you have common ground. For me, you can see in the case there, I've got a bunch of Warhammer and Warhammer Fantasy miniatures. Because of the virus, we can't go out and play. And lately, I just signed up to do Dungeons and Dragons over the internet, which will be another way of meeting someone. And, you know, again, if we get involved in doing our own thing, then we might meet somebody else if that's what we're inclined towards. You know, or maybe we will always forever be solitary, and that's just one way of making those human connections to develop friendships, but we may still be alone for the rest of our lives, you know. I don't know. I don't have the answers, you know. But I'm just kind of marking time here. And if I could say, too, I have 3 friends right now who are young trans women who are going through a bit of hell right now because they're single. And again, within the community, you probably can hook up with somebody. But to go outside of the trans community, it's very, very hard. but you know, I'd hate to sound like an old fart, but that's what I'm going to sound like. But these three young trans women, they're beautiful. Transition, and I mean, I mean, talk about passing. They look beautiful. They sound beautiful. Their voices are pitch perfect. I mean, in a crowd, you'd be very hard pressed to pick them out for being trans. And they're coming to realize that, you know, they, all three of them, you know, they've lived as beautiful women, beautiful young women, for lack of a better word, for a good 5 years. And, you know, getting off on meeting other people and through their beauty and charisma, which probably is very, very true in the cis world, young women. But as they've gotten older and their beauty is starting to fade, talk about cosmetics, they're starting to kind of, you know, what is womanhood? What does womanhood mean when you're not young and beautiful? I don't know if I'm driving to a good point or not. You know, they're finding out their transition is still ongoing. Their development, and maybe that's not really a fair statement. Much like a cis woman would come to realize what life is going to be like as a middle-aged woman, that's what they're identifying with. And you know, it's I don't know. It's part of life. That's what we're going through. And this, on a positive note, from myself, I'm a week away from starting a new job, which is cool. And I started exercising yesterday. As I've made mention before, I'm extremely fat and obese, and I'm happy with it, fat, dumb, and happy. However, I'm going to start working for a company that's believes that a person's happiness is related to their body fat quotient, their BMI, body mass index. And so they assume that if your BMI is off, that you are unhappy and miserable and you are a health risk. So the company goes out of its way to pressure you to become fit and become healthier, because by their standards, by being healthier, you will be healthier. And so my days of fathood are numbered. So I have started my own little program of exercise. Nothing overly traumatic, or nothing overly dramatic or substantial. I'm not going to join a gym, but I've done my own little fitness routine, which I hope will benefit it. You know, Facebook gives you that, you know, look at yourself from 2 years ago, look at yourself from 3 years ago. And, you know, 3 years ago, I weighed the same today that I did then, and I look the same. 2 years ago, I had lost 120 pounds so I could have GCS. And a year ago, I was gaining weight. So now I've reached that equilibrium happiness state. My body is happy with itself. But I'm about to enter a working world that is not that way. Like I said, they look at fat people and go, something's wrong with you. Got to change it. So that's on my horizon. That's my next step, which part of me is very spiteful. The other part of me is like, well, yeah, I could use some exercise. It's not wrong. Be healthy. So on that note, I'll sign off. The best of luck to you. The best of luck in becoming your authentic self as you define it. And we will see. We'll see you next time. Good luck to you, my friends. Hang in there. And if I think we're going to start to come out of this depression with the COVID shit. I think we're still several months away from a vaccine. And we Americans were very stubborn and individualistic, and probably a lot of that is going to prolong unfortunately, the quarantine time that we remember as being quarantine time. It's inherent in our nature. So till next time, good luck. Bye-bye.